Want to sharpen your game? Join the DFM Coaching Patreon for exclusive technique breakdowns and mindset training. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Tap In. My name is David Figueroa-Martinez of DFM Coaching, and today we're going to be discussing stop chasing the meta. And if you've been in Jiu-Jitsu for quite a while, you will follow accounts that discuss certain types of techniques. You're going to start following high-level competitors. You're going to be looking at what works at the highest level and thinking that it is the best of the best techniques. There's a difference between what works at the highest level and what's just generally going to work regardless. And we have, specifically the younger or the lighter belts, have a tendency to look at what is currently happening at the highest levels, the ADCs, the world championships, and thinking that those are the go-to techniques that we need to be studying because they're happening against the best of the best of the best. There's an aspect of that does make sense to some degree. In the reality of things, the meta or that grouping of individuals competing at the highest level are competing in a very specific subgroup that none of us are in. They are part of a group that are competing against each other regularly. They know each other pretty well. They're a type of athlete that in most regards has no other responsibilities like jobs and careers other than being good at jiu-jitsu. So they have time to invest. They have time to study. They have the resources to sit at a place and maybe ask another person who's really good at such and such. They have time to spend like whittling down certain techniques to a certain level that the rest of us are just not going to get to because we don't have the time in the day. They have the ability to put their bodies through the rigorous training that's required to pump out those reps and get those in-roll action that allows them to get the sharpness that's required and the timing that's required to hit these techniques. So if we are looking at the meta and thinking that that's what we should be chasing, we're disregarding all the other shit that's going on. We're disregarding all the other aspects that's going on. This isn't like basketball where you're like, well, this guy hits this fadeaway and I want to hit a fadeaway like that. Like basketball is as skillful as it is, and as much as there's so much talent and skill in that sport, in the NBA specifically, it's not as wildly open as a playground as jiu-jitsu is. It's not wildly open like MMA is, where there are all these different arts just in jiu-jitsu itself. Jiu-jitsu, when you go to compete or you are training with someone on the mats, even as just a pure hobbyist, quote unquote, and I say that only because that's the term that we use, you can roll against someone who's done nothing but jiu-jitsu. You can roll against someone who's done high school or collegiate wrestling. You can roll against someone who's done judo or sambo or any type of grappling. So we are pretty wide open when it comes to the myriad of techniques that we're going to see in different approaches and the ability of controlling another human being. We don't have the time to invest to kind of get to that granular level that the elite of the elite do. We don't have the time to invest our bodies through that kind of training. We just don't. So when we're looking at the meta and we're trying to evaluate what's working and not working, at the end of the day, the best way I try to put it, and this is not trying to disparage or make fun of or put down that elite class, because that's elite. It's really what's popular. At the end of the day, it's a popularity contest. Someone pulled out some technique at some point, found success with it, maybe named it or maybe gave it the name that they knew it, whatever it might be. And they then started mowing through competitors. And then other people started adapting that technique to their own. And they start having success. And then it reaches the highest level, and now a large percentage of those people competing at that level or using that technique. It's not like it's an arms race where we're trying to get to this technique that trumps all the other ones. It's just what's popular and identifiable at the time. And oftentimes when they get these techniques and someone pulls something out of a hat, Berimbolo was a big thing at one point. It's still used, but it's not the big thing that it was once at one point. You have the Inoki lock and the Woj lock, and all these things came into play at a certain level. And then not that they go away, but they just become, in essence, normal techniques. And no longer viewed at the highest level has to do all of these. And sometimes they kind of fade out or they go into the background and something else replaces it. And there's this constant flow of techniques that gain popularity because they maybe weren't as identifiable for a bit. And then what happens is, like evolution and everything else, things catch up, defensive catch up. And then someone else brings something else into the game. And then that rises to power or rises to popularity and makes it into the meta. The meta is less about like ability and usefulness, although those are factors. And it's really more about popularity and what is working right now and what everyone else views it and then they adapt to it. But it doesn't make the rest of the techniques in jiu-jitsu any less important or any less viable as techniques that need to be fashioned into your game. You are not the elite. Most of you are not competing. Most of you compete sparingly or rarely, just like I do. So there really isn't a giant need to stay up on all these techniques and make them your own. Some of these things are going to be great for you, and some of these things are not. Some things are not going to be viable for you because of your size, your body type, your temperament, the amount of time you can invest in them. So we have to start getting away from that arms race and that meta race and thinking more in terms of what is it that works for me in this moment? What can I make work for me in the amount of time that I have to develop that arsenal? If I don't have the R&D time, the time that is required for me to research and develop for my own sake, it doesn't matter how many videos I ingest about this new thing that's working at the highest level, it's not going to benefit me because I do not have the time to invest and make it work for my own game. So we have to start getting away from that. Yes, are things cool? Yes, I agree. There's sometimes I come across some videos on YouTube or Instagram, and I'm like, oh, I want to start working that. And I put it on a list somewhere, and maybe I get to it, maybe I don't. Oftentimes I don't. I don't, again, as someone who's teaching anywhere from 16 to 18 classes a month, I don't have the time for everything. And there's a lot of goals that I have and things that I got to develop and teach for specific students or the class overall. I don't have the time to jump into everything. So I tend to look at these techniques as, are they viable for me? Not the highest level. Can I work them into my game with what I already have going? How much research and development do I have to invest in order for it to be good for me, not just good in general? If I don't have a foundation in place that can assist or hold that technique up, I don't even bother. It's not even something I bother. The last thing I added into my game was Octopus guard. And I like playing half guard quite a bit. I understand half guard really well. So adding it wasn't completely foreign or alien to me. It was just adding another piece. But if I wasn't a half guard player at all, and trying to add Octopus guard would be a little bit of a challenge because I would have to understand the art of half guard, understanding where the weight is, how do I push off, how do I maintain it, what other weapons can I utilize from that position, and then start gaining some success with the Octopus portion of it. But if you don't have anything in place that's going to kind of help that technique out, you're building from almost zero. And you want this technique to work, but because you have to put in so much research time into what holds the technique and makes the technique work, in this case, let's say half guard for Octopus, that technique's never going to work and you're never going to find any success with it and you're going to get frustrated. So this is why I'm very picky about what I add to my own game. My game is not going to ever look like someone at the elite level. Have aspects of certain things like I have butterfly half that I've taken from Orzinski. I have a butterfly that I took from Marcelo Garcia. I have aspects that I took from Gordon Ryan. I have all these little different aspects, and they meld together into what I do. That's very unique to me, and it's identified as my own game. There are no two people with the same game. We all kind of have little intricacies that are different than one another. But if you're going to go down that road, I highly recommend just kind of understanding what already exists within you in the game, so you can kind of plug it, play it, instead of like having to develop this entire system for something that you want to add that's not that beneficial to you. Also, at the end of the day, as weird as it might sound, when you've been around for a really long time, and I'm going to say anyone over 6, 7, 8 years in a sport, you start to notice certain patterns. I just made 15 years, and I understand that techniques are cyclical. Things are going to go in and out of fashion. They're going to shift. The popularity is going to rule something ineffective, and it's going to rule something else super effective. You're going to see a lot of techniques come and go. I have seen bear and bows kind of come into high fashion, and then they kind of dwindle. Not saying that they're not used. I still use it to some extent. Buggy choke was all the rave at one point. So the leg locks, to a certain degree, they're incredibly useful. I don't see them being as high up on the list for people now, like they once were at one point, because things kind of just shift. The environment that we work in and train in, just like anything else. People are going to find answers to things, and then someone else is going to pose a different question. And then that question may not have that many answers or answers at all. And then some people start getting hip to the techniques and the areas where the technique is kind of weak. And then they shift to something else. This is just the landscape that we're in. We're going to shift from one technique to another. And then at some point, you're going to see a lot of people playing half guard. And then a couple of months, years, you'll see a lot of people playing closed guard. And then you'll see people playing butterfly. And it's just going to move from one thing to another. It does not mean that the techniques that you're solidifying right now are insignificant or a waste. You make the techniques work because you spend time on them. It doesn't relegate your technique to unuseful. Maybe, quote unquote, a little old school, but that's okay. Make it work for you. There's no sense in getting older and getting all this experience and techniques that you've loved and then just kind of throw them aside. No, you just keep developing and adding and developing and adding. It's going to help. And just understand that you hear long enough, you're going to see some shit that you're just going to be like, well, they were doing that back in 2021 and they were doing this, and this. And then this is becoming popular again. And you're like, oh, that's part of my game already. It's just part of the culture and part of the environment that we're in. For students, I touched on this a little bit. Filter out the noise. Put these techniques through a filter of some kind. What can I plug and play really quickly? What do I already have a foundation in that can help get that plugged? And then understand not every technique is for you, even if it's at the highest level. There's plenty of things at the highest level that I don't do. I don't need to do. I'm an instructor and I'm teaching out of a couple of gyms. I'm not competing at the highest level. The majority of jiu-jitsu students are not competing at the highest level. So there's no need to dive into all of these things. There's stuff that you're just not going to have time for. And there's things that you're going to be able to spend some quality time on. Understand and filter out what is going to be most beneficial for you. What's going to make you most curious? What's going to make you most happy to kind of dive into? And it might just be some of the meta stuff. It's great. And on other parts of your career, it may not be any of it. Me personally, I don't watch a ton of grappling. I used to watch a ton when I was a white and blue belt, and I would spend all weekend watching like the Worlds. Then you get a little older and you've been around a little longer. You have more responsibilities of teaching and maybe studying for yourself or students that have requests for things. And you just don't have the time. I just don't watch all that often. I watch maybe 80 cc's, a match here or there, but it's not the end all be all for me. It's not what pushes me to one way or the other. And it's okay to filter that stuff out. It's okay to filter out much of what you see. Because again, it may not be beneficial to your body type, your age, your temperament, the game you're already playing. And that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm hoping this helps with like looking at the meta and what's out there and what's popular and your own games. If you have any questions on building a game or maybe filtering out some of the noise, don't hesitate to hit me up. dfm.2099 on Instagram and Threads. Until next time, thank you so much.